Hello everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Refuge and welcome to my weekly reading wrap-up. So we do have a bit of a slower week for me. I only read 10 books. I know, it's still quite a few. I'm still, really proud about it, but I have some busier things happening in my personal life. As some of you follow my Instagram or my Twitter, you know that I've been interviewing for jobs, and so I haven't been around the office as much, which is where I get a lot of my reading done. And then I was actually being social this last week, which was great. I went to a Harry Potter trivia night. We got second place. I'm a bit disappointed about that, but it wasn't just Harry Potter trivia because we got all the Harry Potter trivia, right? But they mix in other trivia too to kind of trip people up. But it was still really fun. And then this last night I hung out with my friends, which usually on Friday nights I power through a lot of books. But I'm very excited because we've had a lot of things going on with the channel and stuff happening. I'm filming this Saturday mornings when I always film the weekly wrap up, and tonight is the night that Maggie Cole will be on my channel. So if you end up missing that, it should already be saved to my channel because this will go up on Sunday morning, so you'll be able to watch that already. I'm very excited to speak with her. Maggie has just been, I've loved reading through her books, and I'm very excited to interview her and chat with her. It's gonna be great. Also, one thing you'll notice is that I have a video going up later this week that is talking about the viewer recommendations that I read from the book form. I'm going to start doing wrap-ups of those every time I read like 5 to 10 of them. So when I talk about those books here, I'm not going to say too much because I have a dedicated video to your recommendations that's going up. What's the book form, you ask? Well, this is something that I actually just opened like 10 days ago, and it's already doing so well. I've had over 200 recommendations, and I've already read 8 of them, which is awesome. I know it's weird, but other creators, like, I highly recommend that you do this because it's been amazing to keep everyone's recommendations organized, to know who recommended it to me, and then I'm able to, when I don't know what I want to read, I'm able to turn to this. I will not be reading as many of those this next week because it's time to start on my August TBR. And so I think reading viewer recommendations will either be things that I pepper in throughout, or they'll be something I do at the end of each month, like maybe the last week of every month after I've read my TBR for the month. But it's been a lot of fun. So you'll notice that this weekly wrap up will probably be a little bit quicker because number one, there's only 10 books, and number two, 6 of the books we're going to talk about are in a dedicated video that's coming out soon. But let's go ahead and dive in. And actually the first one on here is Ruthless Night by Jade. This was a viewer recommendation. This is the second book in, I don't know what the series name is off the top of my head, but this was a kind of bully romance, kind of fake dating. There was a plus-size heroine who also goes through some drug addiction, specifically to Adderall. I'll just tell you what the drug is because when I say drug addiction, she is addicted to it, but it's not like it's heroin or crack. Still very dangerous to you. So if you are sensitive to drug use as well as fat shaming, some self-shaming, it's more so coming from a family member and then the bullies in this. Not much from the hero actually though. Like his bullying is coming from a different place. So I really enjoyed this. I listened to this book on my trip last weekend. I may continue the series. I just don't know. I'm not super attached to any of the other characters from this book. This one did have some interesting feelings that it gave me, and none that triggered me or made me uncomfortable. I have read a lot of books lately with plus size heroines, and I think they're very it's very interesting to see other people's perspectives and stuff like that. So I gave this one 4 stars. Again, check out that video if you want deeper thoughts on that one. Then I read Broken by J.L. Drake. This was also a viewer recommendation. I also gave this one 4 stars. The main setup of this one is there is this woman. She's 27, 28. She's the daughter of the mayor of New York. And when we are meeting her, she has been kidnapped and being held prisoner for the past 7 months. And the beginning of this book is her being rescued by this elite special forces group that actually makes it their business to rescue captured or ransomed people and then kind of help rehabilitate them and either put them into witness protection or get them home to their families. So that is what we are seeing happen with this one, and this is a love story between her and the colonel of this group. And this one was a viewer recommendation, as I said, and I really enjoyed it. It was quite a different pace than I was used to, but I haven't read many military romances recently, and I really enjoyed this one, so much so that I read the next one, which was called Shattered, and this is just continuing the story. For me, this one had a little bit of backsliding for me. It also had something that I do not like. It had a trigger warning for miscarriage. So I'm telling you that. And there's still one more part to this series, and I don't know when I'll get to it because I still gave this one 4 stars as well. But lately I've just been kind of irritated with trilogies and their setup when I don't think they need to be trilogies. And I know that that's kind of bitchy for me to decide whether an author is supposed to write 3 or not, but I've just read so many in previous months where, and I'm not even saying they're doing it as a cash grab because honestly I don't feel like most authors do. That's just how they set out to write their stories. They want to do a 3-act structure with that. But when they do that, everything feels so predictable, you know, of like what beats they're going to hit in each book. And I don't like when things are that predictable for me. So I also DNF'd Stay With Me by Nicole Fiorini, and I talk more about this in the viewer recommendation video. Unfortunately, this was, you know, another contemporary. It was super angsty. This is a new adult. This girl has psychopathic tendencies based on trauma that she went through as a young woman. She's having memory blocks, and she ends up in this kind of like juvie for new adults, but it's also a college, and she's forced to go there or go to jail. And she meets this guy there, and she's all like, I'm a bad girl. I don't want to fall for anyone. I'm only going to use you. And I'm just not that into it. And more about that in that video coming out later this week. Then I got to read the arc for Casanova by TL Swan, which is one of my most anticipated reads of this year. Before I tell you my review of this, I want to tell you that in the same way that The Takeover was an auto-approve, if you have NetGalley, say you are new to NetGalley, you shouldn't have a problem being approved for this book. So if something you're wanting to do is get into reading arcs at NetGalley, picking books that will be auto-approved are a great way to start boosting your rating and start getting, you know, that backlist of books that you've reviewed. I have been waiting for this book for the past 2 months because The Takeover, that one was available for an arc like 2.5 months before it came out. I'm sure with this one, since The Takeover was so popular, The Stopover and The Takeover are some of TL Swan's highest selling books that she has. So I'm sure this one, you know, was held off a little bit longer, but it's available, and I got it the minute that it was there. And I read it that day, and I really loved this book. Obviously, there's not much that I'm going to say. This one comes out on August 28th, so a month from now. It was not what I was expecting, and in a good way for the most part. I still think Jameson is a little shit. I didn't like him in the Stopover, which is his own book, and I don't like him in the Casanova. Part of the third act conflict that happens, I blame 80% of it on Jameson. I fucking hate him. Can you feel my rage? I think you can feel my rage. I hate him so much. But I loved Elliot and I loved Kate. This is a workplace hate to love. In certain aspects, kind of like what happens in The Stopover, except they already work together. And then there are some events that happen that kind of make them both look at each other in a new way. Elliot is still trying to find that artist that we've seen him chasing after in the takeover. We see that happen. We get little glimpses of Claire and Tristan and their brood, and it makes me so happy. Oh gosh. There is a Christmas party in here that literally has everyone, and I just cried from happiness to see my precious babies being happy. I just love it. I'll have more to say when this one actually comes out and y'all get to read it, but it was still a 5-star for me. It is not a 6-star in the way that the takeover was, because this one, it's a testament to how much I love these characters in this story, that even though this has some of my pet peeves in it, I was still able to enjoy it so much. And I know a lot of that just comes from is that I'm a TL Swan stan. I've read all of her books except for one, and that one is because she has a second one coming out in like a duet, so I haven't read the first one yet because of that. And I will always read her books, whether they're the indie published ones or whether they're published with Motley. Like, I will always read them. But there was a time during this one where I was like, this might be a 4-star, and then it was a 5-star for me, and I still teared up a couple times, and it was beautiful. So I will still always love the takeover. I mean, that's in my top books ever. But this was still really great, and I had a good time. And I'm really excited for Christopher's book. Like, Christopher was set up a little bit in the same way that like Elliot was set up in the takeover, and so I'm very intrigued to see what happens with him. Then I read Healing Storms by Lynn Burke. This was just one I had on my Kindle. It's one that I bought because I read quite a few of Lynn Burke's books at the very beginning of this year. She writes some darker romance. This one I wouldn't call as dark, but this is a MMF. It's a very interesting setup. So the men were actually best friends, and then they were brothers-in-law, and then his wife and the sister, so like the sister and the wife are the same person, she died, and so now one of our heroes is a widower, and both of the men are feeling pretty guilty that they have had and always will have feelings for each other that now they really feel like they can't act on, because it would feel like betraying that woman. But then this new woman comes to town that kind of catches the eye of both of them, and she seems pretty open to seeing what the three of them could be together. So I wouldn't call this one super dark at all. I don't really feel like it was, but I mean, it's a little bit of angst between them, but I really enjoy it. Lynn Burke writes a good story, but I gave this one 4 stars. Then I read Feral Sins by Suzanne Wright. This was a viewer recommendation, and I gave this one 5 stars, and I talk quite about this one in that video that I keep referencing. And this is a paranormal wolf shifter romance between an alpha and then a latent shifter. She is also a healer, and they enter a fake mating arrangement, which I have never read something like that before, because they're trying to get an alliance happening, and her father is trying to force her to mate with someone that she doesn't want to mate with, and so these two, Trey and Taryn, enter this in, and then oopsie, we really are each other's mates, which we were not planning to happen. So I loved it. Then I read Captive by Jex Lane. I gave this 3.5 stars. I just wasn't quite vibing with this. I thought this was going to be polyamorous the way that it was described to me. This was a viewer recommendation, by the way. And what I have people do when they fill this out is they tell me the book and the author and then the tropes that are involved so that I know just a little bit about it. And so this one is paranormal, more on like the fantasy side of it. There are vampires and incubi and succubi and dragons and all these different things. And our hero is a vampire, or he believes he's a vampire. And at the beginning of this book, he gets captured by this, I always get it wrong, I think it's an incubus. And this is a like male mostly, but also there are different partners at different times because the incubi and the succubi, they are fed off of pleasure, and so, you know, different people are together at different times. And it's clear to me who the main couple is maybe supposed to be, but at the end of this book, they're not together. This is a series. It's a series that is not over yet. And from what I've read about it, it is a couple books before the main couple is like together again. And I don't know. I gave this one 3.5 stars. It was hot, but there wasn't enough romance in it for me. There was just sexual encounters with different people. And if I was feeling a stronger pull between those two, that MM situation, I maybe would be more ready to continue it, but I just didn't connect with it enough to keep going. So I understand why it was recommended to me. There were parts of it that I really liked, but then when it became clear that it was going to be a long road before we had romance happening, I'm just not here for it. Like, I need the romance to be clear. I don't want to be fucked around with who I'm supposed to be rooting for, and I get irritated with it. Oh, nice. We have a nice line on the face. That's it. So, then I read Wicked Cravings by Suzanne Wright. This is book 2 in that series. I am enjoying binging my way through these. This one is one of the mates is kind of resisting the fact that they might be mates type of thing. And our heroine has a feral wolf that she's trying to keep locked inside because of some trauma she went through. And if she were to let that out, it could be very dangerous for her and the pack. And I gave that one 4.5 stars. And then the last one I read was The Predator by Runyx, and this was a viewer recommendation. This is a dark mafia. It was not as dark as I was expecting. I was trying to explain this to Jessin because she was asking me if she should read it. And the best way that I explained it is that it's a dark mafia, but it's not dark in the same way that, like, there's not a bunch of dubious consent or non-consensual things or crazy kinky things happening. It's dark because there are some scenarios we see that could be in a thriller. Like, there are some bloody deaths, there is some graphic depictions of certain things, and that is dark. But it's not dark in the sense where I'm like, oh, this is a dark romance that you better check your triggers for it. I honestly can't think of too many like triggers that even stick out to me besides this being like there are some dark elements that happen, but none of them are the ones where I'm like, oh yeah, there's rape and assault in this, and so you should watch out, because I didn't really see those things in this one at all. So, all right, the light is really starting to piss me off, and that's everything that I have to talk about. Anyway, make sure to be on the lookout for that viewer recommendation video. I'm going to be making more of those wrap-ups as we go along. So thank you so much for watching this. I put up new videos 3 to 4 times a week, and you can see some more of them right now. Bye.